coming out. As I'm sure you know, there's several things on the agenda for the public hearing. They're on the agenda in the order we'll take them, and I think they're on the agenda in the order of length that they will take. In other words, I think it's the latter matters that will compose most of our time. So as we address each one, we'll see how much time that takes and determine how much to divide out on the next one. We've got a full county commission meeting at 6 o'clock following this meeting. The first matter on the agenda is a resolution to rezone Highway 53 from the city limits of Manchester out to Pomeroy Road and Old Woodbury Highway. This is in the growth plan or urban growth boundary of the city of Manchester, and there's a resolution to rezone it from to C2. Is there anybody here that wants to speak on that issue that'll be coming before the commission tonight and is before this public hearing? Highway 53 being made commercial. It's 300 feet deep on either side of the road back for the commercial growth out Highway 53. Anybody on that issue? If there's no one that has anything they'd like to say on that, we'll go to the second issue. The second issue is consideration of a zoning change of the Rice property, which is located on part of it is located between the old Tullahoma Highway and the new Tullahoma Highway, and the other part adjoins the north side of the old Tullahoma Highway. The proposal is to make 20.88 acres on the north side of the old Tullahoma Highway from R1 to C2 commercial, and the remaining 65.16 acre tract of the Rice property located between the old Tullahoma Highway and the Highway 55 from RS1 to M2, which is to be consistent with the operation that's currently in existence there, which I believe predated any zoning we had. And I would note that on that is in the urban growth boundary of Tullahoma, and so it is consistent with the growth plan for the urban for where M2 should be located. Is there anybody here that wishes to speak pro or con or be heard in regard to the rezoning of the Rice property, part of it to C2 and the other part to M2? Anyone? Okay. That took care of what would amount to 3 resolutions that will be coming before the commission. Now we'll get to the next 2. The next consideration is a proposal in regard to and it's resolution 2013-01, and it pertains to the amount of money that would be required for a bond on a quarry or something of that nature that was authorized to establish. A couple of meetings back, it got reduced, if I'm not mistaken, to about $2,000 an acre at 25. What was the figure? 2,000, Mr. West. What was the figure there? Okay, and when Mr. West presented that, some felt it was low, and he said, "I'll be back at another meeting after studying it with a higher proposed figure." That figure passed, and he's made a resolution now, proposal that would increase it from $2,000 to $4,000 an acre, and from $95,000 total to $200,000 total. Is there anyone that wishes to be heard pro or con on that issue? The final issue is the one I anticipated would take the longer amount of time, and obviously has, since none of the others have taken any. And that is the issue. Now, in the notice, although this lets you know what it's ultimately about, the notice is not technically correct. In one sense, it says it's consideration of a request to rezone the right property from RS1 to M2. That's not technically the resolution that will be before the commission, but that's the issue that revolves around it, is whether or not ultimately that property could be rezoned to M2. The actual resolution that's under consideration by the commission is whether or not to change the wording of the zoning ordinance that requires that M2 zoning be limited to the UGB areas. The property in question is not in the UGB area as currently configured, and the proposed resolution would allow discretion to those making the decision on zoning as to whether or not to allow it M2 activities in any other areas, and not limited to that particular area. Is there anybody that would like to be heard on that? And if you would, I'd like to see the number of hands that want to be heard on that issue, and by that, then we'll kind of judge how much time to allow each individual. And first, let me ask, are there any council or people who are here as representatives of a group? Okay. And you're here to speak opposed to it. First, let me ask, are there people that's here to speak for it? Anybody here to speak for it? Let's give would you like to say? Sir, do you want to speak for it? Or you don't have to. I don't mean to put you on the spot. I just wanted to give, since there's a change being sought, to let the proponent of it be heard first. Okay. Well, I don't hear anyone on that. So come forward to the podium, and then we'll have some others later. And come forward to the podium, announce your name for the record, and we'll go from there. Having a hard time getting speakers.
My name's Bobby Brown. I live at Hillsboro. Most of you guys have heard me before. You know where I stand on this issue. I'll make it short tonight. We've been fighting this issue for several years now. We have a growth plan in place for Coffee County. We need to keep it in place as it is to protect our citizens. It also allows for industry and business to come in. So with that being said, we don't need to make changes to that's going to adversely affect the rights of the property owners in Coffee County. And with that, I'll let someone else address you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I tell you what, Council, before we let you come up, let's let any individual want to speak, and we'll... Okay.
My name is Glenn Lazalier. I've lived in Hillsboro for 48 years. I like the green zone that's around me, the acreage around me, that's farmland. I do not want to have the opportunity for a heavy industry of unlimited characterization appear next to my home. M2 is a drastic step from where we're currently zoned with agriculture. It's too far to make in one step. We have a plan in place, as Bobby says, for bringing in these kinds of industries in the urban growth zones. Let's keep them in a controlled manner. Let's don't let them proliferate out into the beautiful part of Coffee County that those of us who have been here for a long time, and I'm a newcomer, 47 years. Those people in Hillsborough, until my grandkids are buried there, I'm still a newcomer. The people have been in Hillsborough from the time before this was Coffee County, and they're there because they like the land and the agriculture. Please don't convert us into an industrial wasteland.
Thank you.
I'm Shaw Jared. I've lived in Hillsborough 35 years, and it's my understanding that if something happens to my well, they said they would take care of it. Are they going to take care of it till I die and my wife dies and my family dies? I haven't paid a penny for water. Am I going to have to start paying for water, or are they going to furnish it?
Have you been there long enough to be a long-time resident? You just said 30-something years. You're a newcomer, okay. Next, yes, sir.
Yes, my name's Wade McCullough. I'm a resident of Hillsborough. I would be directly affected by zoning change on the Wright property. My property doesn't actually join the Wright family, but I'm pretty close to it. I also have a water well that I use for our domestic water. I feel like any kind of quarrying or blasting or that sort could very well affect my well just as much as any other people's drinking water in that area. Like I say, I've lived in Hillsborough all my life, and like Mr. Laslier said there, I really don't want to see that kind of industry inside the Hillsborough area. We have a urban growth boundary set in place for that, and I'd really like to leave Hillsborough alone and just be the pretty farmland that it is. So yes, I oppose any changes to that zone.
Thanks.
Thanks.
I'm Ross Clark from North Coffee County. And I remember when they were going to put in a heavy industrial hazardous waste dump in Beech Grove. These people stood behind us to stop it. I'm here tonight to say we don't need the shock waves of blasting in a rock quarry permeating through septic tanks and wells in an agricultural area, because the sound shock from a blast in a rock quarry carries for quite some distance. And the damages that can come and so forth, I'm here to add support to say we don't need the industrial in an agricultural county.
Gentlemen, my name is Doyle Ford. I live in extreme, right on the border of Coffee County and Bedford County, on Normandy Lake. And that's one of the most beautiful places I've ever lived in my life. I'm a relative newcomer. Came to Coffee County in '04 after living in Davidson County all my life. And I think the one thing that would drive me out of this county quicker than anything else is to have some kind of mining operation come into my part of the county, because right now it's one of the most desolate parts of Coffee County. And I don't know, between Cathy Ridge Road and the lake, I would say there's not more than 20, 25 houses. So it wouldn't upset the county too much if every one of us left, but I would sure hate to go to all the trouble and expense and leave all the friends I got in Coffee County. So if you'd vote no, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
For those of y'all that may not know, Mr. Ford was a flagman or flag driver for NASCAR for many years and retired from that. You may have seen him and not realized it.
Good evening. My name is Alex Engler. I live in Normandy. I've lived there 7 years. my concern with having heavy industrial zoning laws, not only to the environment, not only to the beautiful land of Tennessee, at what point do we draw the line, or how are we protected as citizens of Tennessee that right now we have an idea of who the developer is that's coming in for these quarries? Does it end at a quarry? Will it become other resources that we have here in Tennessee? How do we know, as far as China, that China is not going to be behind other companies outsourcing our resources till we have nothing? They deplete everything we have in our beautiful state, and for what? You know, and how, as citizens, are we protected? We know what's going on. We know that resources are being outsourced to other countries in the world. And to me, that's my biggest fear, not only the environment, but it's going to get out of hand. And so I'm asking you to please vote no to protect the citizens of Tennessee and to protect our beautiful environment.
I'm Dennis Beckert. We're residents of the Beech Grove area. We've been here 20 years. Love it. It's just can't say enough about how much we love it here in Tennessee. Retired from the Air Force, so we travel all over the world, and this is home, and it's what's going to stay home. We faced this issue some years ago in the Beech Grove community, as already been mentioned, about a dump. And we were all pretty complacent about the lack of zoning until this came up. And it made it very, very clear to all of us that we need to keep these sorts of things out of the county. It's an agricultural county, it's a beautiful county, and we certainly want to keep it that way. So please vote no.
Good evening. Rodney Brinkley. I'm speaking on behalf of me and my wife, Nicole, and my two children. And I'm a landowner in Hillsborough, Tennessee, and I just want to say I'm directly opposed to a rock quarry. I'm not a homeowner there yet, but I would like to be, and I don't want to have to try to spoil my grandkids where there's a rock quarry next door. I'm opposed to that. Urge you to vote for against it.
Thank you.
My name is Julie Miller, and my mother, her maiden name was Brown, and she was raised her whole life next door to this land until she married my father, who was a Marine, and we traveled everywhere, and they planned to come back and settle on that land. I lived in Murfreesboro for 8 years and then came back to Hillsborough because it's country land and it's a beautiful view across the street from my house. I'm one of the few people of my age who has left Coffee County and come back because of the place that it is. And I wouldn't want to leave again. Thank you.
Well, my name is John Hill. I live right straight in front of where the proposed site is going to be, and I wanted to say I'm opposed to it, and that's about all I've got to say.
Keith, I promise I won't talk long. My name is Deanna Lawson. I'm a retired teacher, and I've been in this room many a time at meetings about education. But I'm here, I live in Hillsborough. Like Mr. Lazalier said, I'm a newcomer. I've only been there 41 years. But it's not only the issue of the quarry. I was glad when we had some zoning laws and some zoning protections so that we as citizens of this county knew what we could expect. I'm opposed to the quarry not only because of where I live, but I'm opposed to the fact that we can just come in and start changing rules and regulations and making drastic changes. And so I ask you to please not do that because of not only the people of Hillsborough, but as the lady from Normandy spoke out and from Beech Grove, we want to protect the whole county. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Alex Engler, and my wife spoke before. I want to thank you all for your time and giving us the attention. Obviously, from my accent, you guys can tell that I'm a real newcomer. 7 years, that's my wife. But I'm an airline pilot. I fly all over the world. I flew Iran-Contra. I know Africa. I know the Middle East. I know all kinds of horrible things that have been done to different communities because we, in a moment like you'll have right now, somebody dropped the ball, lost track of the many and took care of the few. And I please ask you, take care of the many. They're asking you to not vote for this. Please listen to them. I love what you all have here, and I hope you all allow me to stay in your community. You have welcomed us, and I'll do all I can to be a part of it and protect what you have to protect, and your parents and grandparents. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name's Steve Cunningham, and you know, the rock crusher won't affect me that much if that's what they put in there. After all, I'd like to point out that there's been no application for a rock crusher. To make a zoning change like this in direct opposition, conflict with the rules and regulations set in place by the state, our land use plan is going to put me at risk as a taxpayer, just as it will each one of you, because you're not going to have, if this thing passes and they do put a rock crusher or whatever fits in their zone, you're going to put every citizen in Coffee County at risk when the folks out there in Hillsborough file a lawsuit. And I just want to make that very plain. A lot has been talked about Wright suing Chevrolet for $10 million. Well, they were on the other side of this in that lawsuit. They sued Chevrolet because Chevyville changed the laws to keep Wright from doing what they were legally, that they could legally do. And if you change this and put this M2 zone out into a beautiful area that is designated by the Proposition 1101 committee as rural area, you put us all at risk. And thank y'all for being here, all those that came to the public hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
My name is Jim Patterson, and I just want to, on a couple of points, state that, first of all, your 1101 regulations and your land use plan, your rural areas, it does state that you are to steer away from having high-density residential, commercial, or industrial developments in those rural areas. It does not in any way keep you from allowing industrial development within the rural areas. There are certain types of industries that are better suited to rural areas than they are to highly populated areas. Regardless of what you do tonight, if you guys vote this down, you still have a conflict in your zoning resolution that's going to have to be addressed. You currently state that M2 industries, including rock quarries, have to be located in the UGB. You then, in the criteria for rock quarries, state very clearly that rock quarries cannot be located in areas that are densely developed or expected to be densely developed in the future. That, by definition, from the 1101 regulations and your land use plan, is exactly what a UGB is. So even if you vote this resolution down, you have got a conflict there that has to be addressed and is going to have to be fixed. There are other ways that you can do that. You could put rock quarries into an M1 zone so that it doesn't have to be located in the UGB. You could create another zone for rock quarries and similar type industries, other mining type industries, that's a standalone because they are different than other type heavy industry facilities. But if you vote this down, this resolution, that doesn't alleviate the problem you have in your zoning resolution, your zoning document. I just want to make sure that y'all are aware of that and that you keep that in mind, that this issue is not as simple as just simply voting this resolution down and then it all goes away. There is a conflict there that needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Thanks. Sure.
Mr. Patterson, I'd like to add something on that, just to further some clarification on that. What you said about high-density residential, commercial, industrial is exactly correct, but I think we need to follow up and finish the what's read in state law, and it also says that in regards to rural agriculture areas as defined under PC 1101, the county has a duty to manage the growth and natural resources in a manner which reasonably minimizes detrimental impact to agricultural lands, forests, recreational areas, and wildlife management areas. So that's the rest of that statement, and so that you got to finish it off with the rest there and ask yourself, is there a detrimental impact?
Well, it's certainly, I mean, I don't think anyone would interpret that, or most would certainly not interpret that to say that you cannot have a rock quarry in a rural area. There are rock quarries going into rural areas across the state of Tennessee, and that's where most of your rock quarries go, is into rural areas.
Right, and it's because of geology and stuff.
Sure. And
where they go, but
and there's less impact. I mean, you put a rock quarry in a highly, a densely populated area, you have more potential for impact, obviously.
Right, and the only thing I wanted to point out was just the rest of the statement.
Okay.
Once it goes past the discussion of the high density industrial, residential, commercial, it finishes off with saying that you also have to protect the areas as well. So I just wanted to, for those in the audience and on the commission panel up here that
and
don't
that's
have
where
the
your
rest of the
state
code.
permitting process
Right.
comes in, is those protections.
Exactly.
Any other individuals before council speak? And I do believe I see a council's come in for Mr. Riser, I'm not mistaken. I think I did. Maybe mistaken. But go ahead. You beat him here, you get to get the podium first.
Well, I talked for quite a while last time, so I'll keep it a lot shorter tonight. The resolution that's opposed, that so many people have spoken to as being opposed, it strips out M2 from being inside the UGB. So an M2 can be anywhere in the county. So instead of being stuck in the UGB, contained, limited, it can be anywhere. That means your landfill can be anywhere, your adult bookstore can be anywhere, your quarry can be anywhere, anything else that's on that industrial list. So basically your zoning is essentially gone, and that I think is where a lot of people got heartburn over this and started to see that this had a big effect for the whole county. And who wanted it? Well, one particular family wanted it. I'm sure for financial reasons. We all have financial interests, we understand that. But it's going to come at the cost of all your zoning. The other thing that I think was relevant tonight to think about is that you probably all got your letter. Mr. Husky was asked to address the legal opinion. I had a chance to read over it, and found what the rest of us found, which are Attorney General opinions that say if you can amend, but you have to do it consistent with your urban growth plan. If you don't, it's probably illegal. So that, of course, is the big cornerstone legal issue that the people of Hillsborough will stand on. They're asking you to hold on to and maintain the basic zoning plan that you already have. The zoning plan you already put all your time and money into creating. Now, at some point, you all may decide that you're going to start chipping away at some of these zoning problems that you've seen. Does your UGB need to be a little bit bigger? Does it need to be over here, over there? Those are all things that you can solve at another time. You can't solve it with this resolution. You will create 15 more problems, but you won't solve any of the issues that you all have talked about and debated and identified. Mr. Sullivan wasn't here tonight, so my comments are also on the record for Mr. Sullivan. I'd asked a couple folks and no one knew the answer. Do you record these? How do you create your record from the comments that are made here tonight? Mr. Husky?
They've got a tape going.
Okay, great. So it is being tape recorded and everyone's names are on there. Okay, I just wanted to check with that. The M2 or the UGB definition is not just about dense population. It goes to industrial, commercial, land that's contiguous to the city area, so it's a broader definition. Dense population is just one of the big picture. So I think that's a lot of other people are raising that and saying, you know, you're making a big decision here that goes far beyond any of these little issues y'all picked out so far. And the last thing I wanted to mention was that Shelbyville case. One of the other gentlemen brought it up, Mr. Cunningham. The critical issue in that was that they had already opened the doors. They had already allowed the very kind of activity that the Wrights wanted to set up the hearing to get their final approval on. So once you've stripped it out, and once you've said you can do this, you kind of have to let people. And that's where Shelbyville got in trouble. So once you step over this line, so for example, if you want to pass this resolution, you've now put yourselves in the same boat and at the same risk that Shelbyville put themselves in. So if you want to stay out of that boat, you want to stay away from that line, you vote it down, you keep your zoning, you keep your protections, and you don't make special exemptions for just one person. That's spot zoning, that's what gets counties in trouble. So I thank you for your time, and I would also like to say on the record, I've just been so impressed with some of the people that have met here. You have a wonderful county and an interesting mix of people here that you're very lucky to have. Thank you.
Did I see Mr. McQuarrie come in? Would you like to be heard on that?
Good evening, Josh McCreary, attorney at Murfreesboro, and our office represents the Wrights. We've been here a couple times before. I appreciate you letting us talk again this evening, and I will be brief, just to raise a few questions and a couple of comments. I keep hearing reference to the growth plan, and I had spoken to Mr. Husky yesterday about that plan and exactly what is being identified when we're referencing this growth plan. And what I've been provided is this land use and transportation plan, and I'm just asking the question, is this what we're referring to as the growth plan?
That's the amendment to the original growth plan, as I understand.
So there was originally convened a committee who adopted a growth plan.
Yes.
And it's something separate than what I'm holding here.
There was a document that preceded that.
And this amends that document?
That's my understanding. But it's kind of an expansion with data and stuff from what I've seen in it. The original one has basically the same type of same type of layout as far as what's to be done and what's where. I think the second one I've looked at, and I tried to compare them a little bit, really explains and spells out more where resources are and where different aspects of population, things that got more charts and data.
Well, I appreciate that. And the reason I asked the question is that it seems, based on Mr. Husky's opinion, that the real question becomes whether or not adopting this resolution is in some way going to be inconsistent with the urban growth plan. And so certainly the first question has to be, what exactly does the growth plan say? And then one would have to identify specifically how is the adoption of this resolution inconsistent with that plan. And from what I've read and what I've been given here, the land use and transportation plan, and just generally the growth law under state law, I fail to see how adopting this resolution could possibly be inconsistent with that plan, for the simple reason that you're not rezoning anything by adoption of this resolution. The reality is, all this resolution does is opens the possibility to M2 zoning outside the urban growth boundary. Anyone wanting that designation then outside the urban growth boundary would have to come back for rezoning to have their property rezoned. It's only at that point that one could even raise the question whether or not the rezoning is inconsistent with the growth plan. So to presuppose that any rezoning outside the urban growth boundary to an M2 is inconsistent with the growth plan, I would submit to you is simply a premature evaluation, because this resolution doesn't get that far. And I think, you know, therein lies another important point, because I too, and I missed the beginning of the meeting, and I apologize for that, but I was driving down from Murfreesboro, but I looked online and saw the agenda for the meeting tonight, and it said the rezoning of the rights property. I understand that's been corrected publicly in this meeting, but I think I thought this at the last meeting I attended, that there just in general seems to be a misconception on whether or not this addresses exclusively the rights, which of course it does not. It is more of a general resolution. It doesn't address the rights property per se or specifically. Anybody wanting the M2 zone is going to have to come back before this body. So again, I'll submit to you that if the question before this body is whether or not it's inconsistent, I would challenge you to look at the growth plan that this county has adopted and to identify expressly how this resolution would be inconsistent. And of course, we've talked in previous meetings, and one of my partners was here last time and addressed some of the concept of not zoning out of use. And I read the transcript of that and heard some of the other attorneys' comments, some of which I agree with and some of which frankly I don't, because clearly the idea of zoning out of use is a concept embedded in law, and one that this commission should be wary of, given that quarrying is certainly a lawful enterprise. And so I think that also is an issue that the commission should keep in mind as it considers what to do here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McQuarrie. I see Mr. North in the back. Would you like to be heard, Mr. North?
No, thank you.
Anyone else? No one else has anything to say? I guess we'll adjourn and take up the commission meeting yeah.
I'd like to say something, because the attorney hit on something that I know it's going to probably come up tonight, but while the audience is still here, that the adoption of whatever, and don't get me wrong, I'm not by any means knowledgeable of zoning, but I'll call it the three-party committee, the municipal committees that was supposedly adopted that
1999.
Are you talking about the 1101 committee?
I guess it's called the 1101 committee. I want to be certain that there's questions whether that was actually ratified by the two municipalities and the appropriate county to begin with. So I've heard questions, and I certainly think we need to research whether that document was certainly appropriately commissioned, authorized, or whatever. And I know later on tonight the whole idea that we certainly can, because it's going to come up on the Thomas Rice coming up, but I think there's issues that raises, that the whole, whatever this coordinating 1101 committee needs to be certainly reconvened and look at redefinitions in other parts of the county, because I spent an hour today talking to Glenn Darden, bless his heart. He certainly does a great job and is solely underappreciated. But there's a lot of designations within our county that is totally appears inappropriate, from C1s to C2s to RS1s. I have no really clue about it. But I think there's a real need to reconvene this committee and get something right, no pun intended, done with,
That's with an R rather than a W.
yeah.
Sir, will you allow a reclaimer on one repeat, or do you want to go there and review the course?
Well, he kind of opened it up. Go ahead.
I guess in answer to one of the statements made by the attorney from Murfreesboro, there is, at the current time, there is no inconsistency in the plan about the M2. The M2 is required to be in the urban growth boundaries. If you allow that M2 to be outside the urban growth boundary, is where the inconsistency with our current 20-year growth plan will be. Thanks. Tom Brown, Manchester.
Mr. Brown has reopened, and I seek your approval to do the same. Len Lazalier from Hillsborough. No offense to the gentleman from Murfreesboro, but now I know why I became an engineer instead of a lawyer. I want to thank him, first off, for making a statement that made my case for me. He says this is not just about the right property in Hillsborough. It's all of you in Dalton County. Everybody from one end to the other is now open. It's the nose of the camel under the tent. Please, stop that camel now.
Alex Angler again. If I could just say one more thing, and again in respect to the attorney from Murfreesboro, that to me, as just a layperson, as an average citizen, this is an attorney from Murfreesboro that, you know, I listen to him talk and very educated and knows all the laws. I don't know all the laws. But what happens when the next company comes in and the next company, and these are attorneys that are corporate attorneys, that is their job, is to just do and get something accomplished like this, a quarry. What's it going to be next? And as average citizens, we don't stand a chance against a corporate attorney like that. And I would just like to thank you for that.
Anyone else have a comment? We've got about 5 more minutes if somebody wants to be heard. Well, I want to thank all, on behalf of the commission, thank all of you for coming. We appreciate everybody's comments, and I invite you to stay for the meeting, which will start at 6 o'clock.